Welcome to Season 5 of How I Made It Through, and thank you for joining us. I have invited Ray Catania, author, metaphysical teacher, and coach, to join me as my co-host as we aim to engage, challenge, inspire, and teach you, our listeners, what it really means to be a spiritual being having a human experience. We'll explore not just concepts, but attempt to unravel the neuroscience of metaphysics, as well as practices designed to expand consciousness, increase healing, and develop a profound connection to love. We'll explore God, death, the afterlife, and pushing past limitations as we encourage you to break free of the trance of fear so that you may experience greater freedom, peace, and connection to yourselves, each other, and spirit. Hello and welcome to How I Made It Through. Today, I am so honored to have our guest, Jessica Lyn. Jessica Lyn is the emotion guiding creator of the inner transformation technique. Jessica Lyn is an exceptional empath, gifted healer, professional artist, and powerful coach. Her passionate curiosity regarding human emotions and behaviors has driven her journey of self-discovery for the past 35 years. Using a vastness of resources from all areas of the world, as well as her own diversity and depth of life experiences, she has created courses, exercises, and techniques to support each individual's unique journey of transformation. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristin. I'm so glad to be here.
I am too. I'm so glad you're here. And you have a remarkable story, yet one I think many can connect to. I know that I did when I started to hear it. I'm just going to hand the floor to you to share the beginning and how you got to where you are today.
Well, I feel like I've had a lot of moments in my life that are stories that I can tell. I can start at the way beginning when I was 3.5 years old. I actually witnessed my father beating my mother. And I was stuck behind a baby gate and I wanted everything to go and help, but I couldn't get past this baby gate. My brother's behind me, he's about 1.5. And my father just kept screaming, take your brother and go upstairs, take your brother and go upstairs. And he basically, it was random. It was so random because my mother was making eggs, bringing it to him. And before he even saw the eggs, he smacked the plate out of her hand and he said, "You made him wrong," and just attacked and pushed her into a room that I could no longer see her. And then there was dead silence and he ran away. Um, I don't remember much after that except for trying to get past the baby gate. But the rest of the story is that basically my mother, he thought he left my mother for dead, strangling her. She had passed out. She grabbed us, went to a neighbor because we weren't allowed to have a phone so that he could basically keep her away from family. And we went to a neighbor. She let my mother use the phone, and my grandparents came and got us, and I lived with them from that point on, which was quite a blessing. But I spent a good portion of my life stuck behind a baby gate. And it was everything I went to do, whether it was my artwork or it was even playing sports. I never reached my full potential in those things because as soon as I got to the point where I could, self-sabotage, imposter syndrome, self-doubt, worthlessness, all the things would show up and hold me back. And when I finally started doing the work that I do now, which I decided to start doing basically because I needed to know there was something more before I decided to leave the planet. I needed to know that I gave it all. I did my best before I took that easier, at the time, what I felt to be an easier way out of suicide was like, wait a minute, have I really exhausted all resources? So I had a really phenomenal thing happen. I had another in my teenage years. I was about 13 years old. The school that I was in, which had 7th grade to 12th grade, somebody spread a rumor that I was gay. Well, I am gay, but nobody knew that. And this was back in 1987, 6, somewhere in there. And when I walked into school one day, unbeknownst to me, everybody knew except me. And I walked down the hall and they spread the hall apart and they all just started calling me names. The principal tried, but back then all he did was announce something over the intercom. And that meant everyone that didn't know now knew. And so it just got worse, to the point where my mother's only solution was to move us out of the town we were in. And unfortunately, she's a single mom and didn't find a place soon enough. So my brother and her lived with my aunt, and then I was bounced house to house to house. And every house I was in eventually got tired of having a non-family member there, and so I had to move to another one. So my life just kept repeating the worthlessness. It kept proving to me that I was not worthy, I wasn't important. My father definitely didn't find me important enough to hear me say, "Stop, leave my mom alone." And so that just kept going. Life just kept handing me what I already believed. So
Yes.
eventually, at that point, when we were moving, we finally had a place and we moved. I don't know where it came from. I don't know if I thought of it on my own or if maybe an adult planted a seed, but I got the idea that when I moved to this new school, nobody knew who I was. They didn't know that I was worthless. They didn't know I was unimportant. And so I could walk in there and present myself as someone that felt worthy. And I started asking myself, what would my old self do in this moment? And I would do the opposite.
Mm.
And so when there was a homeroom class president to be elected, my shy person that I was, and I was so shy, I kept my head down, I didn't look up, I never spoke. My mother would hand me money to go get something I wanted, and I'd say, "I have to talk to somebody." And she'd say, "Yes, you do." And I'd say, "Then I don't want it."
Yeah.
Right,
Absolutely.
right. Yeah, so this for me to take this step to run for homeroom president and look people in the eye, learn their names, say hello to them, all of that stuff was an incredible stretch for me. But what I discovered was that I only lost by 2 points for homeroom president, and I was brand new against a girl that had won 3 times in a row, and I was amazed. I was like, "How did that happen?" So I started keep testing this, what's
Yeah.
the opposite of what the old me would have done, and I went through the rest of my high school without being made fun of, without being bullied. I didn't really find a real clique that I fit into or a group of friends, but I didn't really want one, honestly.
Mhm.
I just wanted to have everyone be kind to me and me be kind to everyone,
Yeah.
period. And that's what I got. And then I hit my 20s and I fell back into old habits. And, then life presented another opportunity for me to relearn the same lessons. And that's when I started going, wait a minute. There's really gotta be more. I see other people having more. What am I missing? Like, I've already changed my life a lot, just not enough. And then I was in a dramatic relationship for 3 years. All of my friends got sick of me, slammed the door in my face, said, "Leave me alone unless you're gonna just let this go." And I went to a friend's mom's house, and it was an amazing, miraculous day. She welcomed me in, she saw the tears, she welcomed me in, she introduced me to, like, all these fruits and cheeses I've never had before, herbal teas, it was magical, and then she listened to me, and then she kind of shoved me out the door and handed me a book, and she said, "If you're really serious about changing, you'll read this book and do it." And I was like at that point, I was so desperate, it was like, "What have I have to lose? I have nothing to lose." So I gave it a shot, and my life started to change. And that book was actually Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawan. Phenomenal book. I still love it to this day. Actually, I have a copy of it right here to remind me that how important to
Mhm.
me to my practices. And the amazing, amazing thing about that was I started my personal journey, my personal development journey. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited to be on your show today is because it only took a few, maybe 2.5 years or something, that I realized that a personal development journey is a spiritual journey. And it hit me when I realized that my personal development journey was all about me connecting to my spirit. And when that clicked, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm on a spiritual journey. Like, I heard all these people talking about it, like it's something that I wasn't allowed to have, or it was too good for me, or something.
Mm.
And then eventually it hit me that I too was doing just that. And it was a very interesting day when I realized that. So From there, with creative visualization, I will say that's where I got my start. But from there, I got interested in everything. And I just started devouring shamanism and Buddhism and Taoism and anything I could get my hands on that would give me a different perspective about the same thing, which,
Mhm.
many people don't realize it's all of them are saying the same thing, just in a different way, just like us coaches and podcasters and everything. We all say the same stuff in a different
Mhm.
way.
Mhm.
So it was really a phenomenal journey, and I was so blessed to find it. And it didn't and I thought I'd come a long way, and then I got a job as a Disney Imagineer. And
What is
I
that? What does
a
that
Dis
mean?
a Disney Imagineer is a person that works for Disney. The Imagineers create everything. They create the theme parks, they create the rides, they create the movies, they create all of it. And so I ended up working on Avatar, Pandora Avatar theme park I did for Disney here in Orlando as a Disney Imagineer. I had been carving already for years, and I'd already had my own company carving cement, sculpting,
Wow.
cement, epoxies, resins, and other things, painting it all myself as well. I had a company for 10 years. And so I'd been doing it for a while. And so I thought, hey, this is awesome. It's a dream I've always had. This is going to be great. And I stepped foot in there, and every doubt that I thought I had cleared up, all of that stuff just came rushing back. And I was in that place where I just couldn't get past the baby gate to find my potential to really shine, even though I
Yeah.
did eventually. But that's when it really hit me that this is a lifetime journey.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's not a one and done. It's like it continually needs to be nurtured, and it is that
Yeah.
cliche of it being a journey.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. It's a moment to moment journey.
It is. I'm so glad you said that. It is that's why I like to say it's a practice.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
It is a
Yeah.
practice.
And that's why I called it practical spirituality when I was mentioning things I'd like to talk about, because practical spirituality to me is that moment to moment, you are doing the practice to maintain connection to spirit and to maintain presence and awareness. And to do what I love to say is to see more,
To
because
see more. Oh,
it's
that's so
always
good.
more. Because in every moment, there is way more information for you than what your brain likes to give you.
Oh God, let's stay there. At first,
Okay.
I want to just acknowledge what you've said and just such a deep resonance. Your story is different, but some of the wounding and the
Mhm.
feeling unworthy and unsafe and hiding. I just hate the baby gate and I so connect with the baby gate. What a powerful metaphor life gave you.
Yeah.
What is your definition of spirit? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, that's awesome. I spirit to me is me, period. Honestly, the more I learn about me, the more I learn that I am. And I know that's that's so weird to just stop there, but I am. I exist, and I'm finding that to me, the awareness that I exist is the important part. And the practice of having more awareness of more, which is why I said see more, is the part that feeds my spirit, that feeds me, feeds my growth, keeps me in that mindset of us being all one and noticing that everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you started to answer that question, which was, what does it mean to see more? And you started to answer that, but can you expand even more about more?
Yeah, absolutely. So science has discovered that in any second, we actually receive 11 million bits of information into our subconscious mind. And our conscious mind receives from our subconscious mind anywhere from 40 to 100 bits of information. When I found that out, I went, I feel ripped off. That's not fair. Wait a minute. What else am I getting that I don't get to actually experience or know about?
Yeah.
And I started developing these practices for myself and these techniques that I would take myself through to actually notice more about either an experience I was in or an experience that I had previously that I just kind of in my mind went and relived. And that's how creative visualization, I think, has supported the inner transformation technique that I created, because there's a lot of remembering and trusting your imagination, because y- you are creating your world, you're creating your experience, and having had certain beliefs prior and then new beliefs now, I can see the obvious difference in what is in my external world and how I feel in my internal world. So I personally, from experience, know that to be true. And that's my entire message for people, is to get to know yourself, do the things that you learn from yourself so you can gain that trust with yourself. And then from there, you'll fall in love with yourself. And it's just a
Mm.
natural evolution. And then you don't have to try and impress anyone else. You just walk through life being you, and those that resonate are there, and those that don't aren't. And it's so much easier.
So
It's just,
liberating.
yeah, it's liberating, it's freeing.
Yeah.
And I find that, you know, how in the past you might have, I was attracting relationships that were good for me. I don't
Mhm.
do that anymore,
Yeah.
because I know who I am. And so as soon as I see something that is a boundary of mine, I gently and lovingly handle that, and then I move on. And so life is just so much easier, because I
Mhm.
could find out what I need, and I'm not finding my answers from everyone else.
This is powerful stuff because you are talking about the subconscious and you are talking about how we have, from very young ages, consciously and unconsciously, been so shaped by experiences that we just consider reality. End of story. I got to tell you, spirit playing a role. And I love how when I ask you that, no one, I've asked that question so many times, no one has answered it like that. They've answered in many ways, which say the same thing, like,
Mhm.
I am God. We are God. We are one. We are, many iterations of the same theme, but the simplicity of that really touches me. Um, where I feel like there's such deep resonance for me with you is super, super shy growing up. Grew
Mhm.
up with a lot of trauma. By the age of 3, my mom, she laughed about it, but I was like, "That's so funny." I used to walk around going like this because I didn't want anyone to see me
Mm.
because you're scared. I was scared,
Yeah. I was scared of
right?
everything.
Scared of
Yeah.
everything. Hated being around people if I didn't have one good close friend. Without that person there, I was just like, "Oh my gosh." So, I'm gonna share something. So yesterday, this lesson came through so powerfully for me. I was in a session with a healer, and I have written this book, and I'm sending it out to literary agents. And she said, "Oh my god, I'm so excited for you. Your guides are coming through. Like, this is gonna happen. This is gonna happen." And she goes, "But there's doubt in you."
Mhm.
And we had to energetically return to that little girl that said
Mhm.
it's too scary to be seen,
Yep.
right? And to release her. And that's where that idea of every moment
Mhm.
is an opportunity to break the spell or the illusion
Yeah.
that we
Absolutely.
are smaller or less than, and that it really comes back to self-love
It does. Every time.
every time.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
share with me and us, what is your, what did you call it? Inner transformation technique?
It's interesting that you asked that right after what you just said. The inner transformation technique came about because I started going into my feelings. So I started noticing any trigger that came up throughout the day. And if I couldn't deal with it in that moment because it wasn't safe or I had to put my attention elsewhere, I would save it for later. And I would literally feel the feeling and I would say, number one, it's okay for me to feel the way that I do, no matter what the feeling is. Full spectrum, doesn't matter what end of the spectrum you're on. I stopped saying good or bad and I started saying comfortable or uncomfortable. And then I would say, thank you. Thank you for bringing this message to me. I know you're
Mm,
trying to tell me something,
mm,
but I don't know if what you're telling me is true, because right now you're telling me I should be scared. And I honestly don't see a reason to be scared. So I'm just going to trust you, but I'm going to do what I need to do. Like, you can be here. You don't have to go away. I'm not going to push you away, because I started feeling something in me started feeling like every time I pushed my emotions away or repressed them, it was self-abandonment.
Mm.
And that just kind of spiraled and made it worse. And it just got worse and worse. And so when I stopped doing that and saying, "You're allowed to be here, but I can't focus on you right now." It was almost like when you say that to a child and they go, "Okay, well, I'll play with this, but I have to be in the room with you. I don't want you to put me out of the room, but I'll be quiet and play with this." So it would be there, but it wouldn't be so strong that I couldn't focus. When I would finally meet it again later, I would call upon it again and try to remember how it felt or what I was doing and bring up that situation again and feel that trigger again. And I would even call it out and be like, that fear that I felt earlier today, I told you that I would come back and I'm here. Are you ready? Do you want to meet with me? And if it showed up again, I would say thank you. I'd bring in appreciation and gratitude. And then I noticed that I started sensing the energy of it. Instead of it being an emotion that had a label, I started sensing the energy in my body
Yeah.
and that it would have a fizzy feeling or something. And then I got curious as to why is it here? Like say it's in my heart and I'm not feeling it in my whole body. What's the container?
Yeah.
And so I started looking for the container, which started to show emotions as having a sensational shape, texture, color, like all these different things started popping up. And so I got to the point where I had an understanding, you have these downloads or whatever your intuitive hits or whatever you want to call them. And I got familiar with it because of art. So I got really familiar with those intuitive hits and that guidance with my artwork because I would sometimes not know how to create a texture or shape. And I'd be like, well, what if I try this? What if I try that? And then something would go,
Mm.
do this. And I'd do it, and it'd be perfect.
Mm.
So I started getting those hits of do this in these explorative moments. And I realized that the communication was pre-verbal. So it was almost like these memories were locked in my physical body or even just my etherical energy, or because we have so many bodies that are invisible that many people aren't aware of, but our emotional body.
Mhm.
And it was locked in there and it had a shape, it had a color, it was all, and it would start to subside a little bit, like it would not be as intense. And so I started using that while I was at work, and I would get triggered, and I'd feel not worthy or like I didn't belong, and I'd start doing just that, and it would take the emotions down a couple notches, so that then I felt more calm, I could make better decisions, etc. And so I just started to enhance on that and grow and a lot of these techniques came out of just this basic curiosity and exploration. And so I tell everyone, they say, "What's your favorite tool?" Curiosity. Make yourself your own favorite subject
Yeah.
and be curious without judgment, compassion, labels, etc. And you
Mhm.
will discover yourself.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it's
that's
that
where it came from. Yeah.
that's incredible. I say it's incredible, but it's actually quite believable because you are living proof, and so many of us are living proof,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? But
And
it's
so I
that
would end up often meeting with my younger versions would show up. Different memory as I would just be going in that exploration and then I'd be like, "What are you trying to tell me?" And I would get a memory. "What are you trying to show me?" I'd get a memory. And in that memory, I would start to work with the beings, the entities there, because some of them felt like, this lifetime memories, and some of them felt like it could have been someone else's memory. But if I was there, I felt like I was supposed to do something. So I'd look for what I was meant to do. And then that's what I would do.
that's fascinating. Can you unpack that a little bit? Like, give an example? It doesn't even need to be a real one, but that
Oh,
feels really fertile.
absolutely. So a real one would be like a real life experience that I had would be me going back to my little girl that was behind the baby gate, which that was such a big trauma that I have had to go back to that moment many, many times. And one of the beautiful things about doing this is that when you go back and you talk to your younger self, or you even talk to my father and my mother from the adult perspective, new wisdom comes in. You see
Mhm.
it totally different because I'm not reliving it.
Yeah.
I'm not, I mean, I may have tears of compassion or something through the process, but I'm not reliving it. Most people are like, "What do you mean? You're going to take me back to my memories?" I don't want to relive that. Like,
Right.
you're reliving it from a more powerful perspective.
A resourced place.
Yes, because you are the adult with so much more information and you know how you would have preferred to have been treated back then. And you know how to speak that in this safe container of your own being to these beings of the past. And the thing is it's all energy. Everything's energy. And our brain doesn't know the difference between real or, outside external real or internal real.
Yeah,
It's all the same as far as our body and our brains considering.
that's
And
right.
and so when you go back and relive these moments from a powerful place and you set your boundaries, you stand up for yourself and your little girl sees this, or you give her permission to do it if she's ready, and all of that happens, you have taken this little girl's energy that is giving you resistance in all these moments in your life because she's trying to tell you, no, don't go there. We're not safe. Don't go there. And then you turn around and go, it's not your job to take care of me. It's my job to take care of you. And I'm going to prove it. And you prove it in this moment and you give her power back and you integrate that energy into a supportive energy for you. And when this works, you end up in life doing things that you haven't been able to do for 30 years and you do them without a thought. And 2 days later you go, "Oh my gosh, I just did that thing that I never thought I could do." And you did it without even a thought. Like you didn't even notice you were doing it. It was
Yeah.
so easy. It's so
Wow.
powerful and phenomenal. And so that's
Wow.
like a real life situation. But then
Mhm.
the moments where you go back and you end up where you're like, "I don't know if this is my memory or not." Like, maybe your little version is there, but it doesn't seem, like, quite right, like, something's off. In those places, I ask questions. I just ask whoever's there questions, and I ask and ask and ask, and I get so much wisdom. Like, I've learned about a couple of my past family members through these memories, these moments, and then I've gone to my family and said, "Hey, did my grandmother ever do this?" And they would say, "Yeah, your grandfather used to play guitar, and then this happened." And I'd be like, "Oh, wow, interesting." Of course, I don't share that with my family too much because they're not as open, but pretty phenomenal stuff. And I've had people actually have, cords attached with. So I had a client that had a stepfather that had committed suicide, I think within the year she was born. And when she went into hers, she had a memory, but he was connected to her with a cord. And she was like, "Wait a minute, what are you doing here?" And he said, "You're the only one that would let me connect because you were the only one that didn't know the trauma that I put them through by committing suicide. So I wanted to stay with the family. And so I connected through you." And
Wow.
she was like, "Well, I don't want you here because you're preventing me from doing certain things and having certain relationships with my family." So we actually did the inner transformation technique through her with him,
Wow.
and he healed what he needed to heal. And at the end, he was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to take this cord away and put it where it needs to be so that it can transform into healing for the family." And he left on his own with the agreement that if they ever need each other, they could reconnect. After that, miraculous things happened in her family, including different family members speaking about him and even posting in social media and stuff for the first time in a loving way. Like, phenomenal shifts.
That is extraordinary. And the thing about that is it goes back to your statement, it's all energy.
It's all
We
energy.
are all interconnected. It is all energy. You're talking about channeling.
Yeah.
When through the portal of the imagination and the heart chakra of opening up that love, starting with the capacity to build self-love,
Mhm.
these doors are open to communication that's always available if we tap into that energy. And then it lowered the barrier for other people. This is me putting words to your story, but this is
Yep.
my experience too. Then it opens the door for eventualities and possibilities and healing generationally
Oh,
and in
yeah.
terms of the collective.
Oh, and the collective is my main goal. It's all about raising the frequency of this planet. It's time for all of us to learn about who we truly are so that we make decisions based on for the good of all.
Yes.
For that and for people to recognize that when you make a decision that's best for you because you really figured out what's best for you, that is best for all. You
Yes.
can't make a bad decision at that point.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that's my main focus, and the empowerment that I want people to understand is that when you build yourself up, get to know yourself, connect to your spirit, accept yourself in every way and always, and in every moment, no matter what is happening, you will only make the decisions that's best for everyone you know and everyone you don't know and every planet and beyond. Like, what's your goal?
I love it.
Mhm.
I love it.
Mhm.
You and I do similar work as coaches or healers, however, but I'm just loving the clarity and the conviction and a path.
Yeah.
And really that it is so connected with, because what I get often is that people, they come across their shame, or they feel self-indulgent, or the resistance, however that comes across. I want to ask you this. When you experience resistance
Mhm.
with clients new, because this is a huge paradigm shift for the way most of us have been moving through the world.
Very.
What are some of the ways that you help people w- with their programmed resistance to this work?
So the biggest thing is I talk a little bit about them as a child. Like, what did you enjoy doing? What parts of being a child do you miss? And almost everybody misses the spontaneity of life.
Yeah.
Like, you were just given permission to wake up in the morning and then go about your day just to discover what happens, right? It wasn't about, I have this whole to-do list. So we talk about that, and then once they get, wow, I do miss being spontaneous. I do miss having my day to myself to just kind of go off on a whim, or a friend calls and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. That kind of stuff. Then I ask them to play with me, and I bring them through these different techniques and exercises that actually allows them to play with different ideas, concepts, whatever it might be. And in that, there's always a new awareness where they go, I didn't even know that about myself. Thoughts are connected. A lot of people go the mindset route.
Mhm.
I say notice your emotions first. If there's a thought there, great, you can work with it. If there's not, then maybe it's pre-verbal,
Mhm.
and then that's how we deal with it differently. But with the ones that are thoughts, my thought is, if it's a limiting thought, I go, okay, that has truth to it, but what truth can I find here that actually supports me, that actually supports the planet, supports the world? What can I find that supports me? And I look for truths that are still relevant, and I create a story that involves those truths, and I just do not focus on the parts that are also true that don't support me.
Mm.
Eventually, a lot of those truths just disappear. And because they tend to not be true anymore as I move in the direction of the supported truths. So it's mindset stuff right there too, but you've got to pay attention.
You do.
Yeah, to
You
where
pay attention differently. Yeah.
Mhm.
Is there anything I haven't asked yet that feels important or you feel called to share?
Well, I actually have been feeling called to share this quote since yesterday when I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be on this podcast for my birthday." And it's a pretty interesting quote, and so I want to share this with people because it really opened my mind. And it's by a man named Gary Zukov. And I, if I recall, he's a scientist, but I'm not absolutely positive about that. Throughout your life, your inner landscape presents its contents to you again and again. When you are aware of all its elements, you are in continual communication with your soul.
Mm.
And that really, really hit me because of my belief of what spirit is,
Mhm.
and how I believe that if each and every one of us truly took the time to make ourselves our own favorite subject and really claim responsibility for all that we are, whether it's
Mhm.
ugly and uncomfortable or fabulous and wonderful, there's not a human on this planet that doesn't have the full spectrum experience. And
Yes.
therefore, I want to bring that out to the world and say, it's okay. We don't have to
Mm.
hide it and ignore it and shame it.
Mhm.
It's part of being human. And
Mhm.
it's part of finding out, that's the part that is going to connect you to your truth. If you ignore it all, you're not in communication with your soul or your spirit. But if you pay attention to it and make it important, you will find yourself.
Yes.
Mhm.
In psychological terms, they call that amplification. When we ignore it, we think we're just, putting it away. But what we ignore tends to grow.
Absolutely. That is
Yes.
definitely my experience.
Mine as well. Mine as well. So where can people reach you?
So I am Jessica Lyn is an extremely common name. And that's why I put
I
emotions stand
understand.
for. Yeah. Just there's like a billion of us. But on Facebook, I also have a group on Facebook called Emotional Wonderland and
Nice.
for leaders. And then on Facebook itself is Jessica Lyn, but I'm also listed as the emotions guide. So and I believe Coach Jessica Lyn might be one of the other handles on there. And then Sacred Interactions is my website. And the reason for Sacred Interactions is because since I believe everything is one, and it doesn't matter if it's a rock or a can of paint, I believe it's all made of the same stuff. And you can have an interaction with all of it. And it's up to you whether or not you make it sacred and important and connected to spirit.
Wow. Listen, I know it's your birthday, but I feel like you've given me such a gift.
When the feeling's mutual, Kristen.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. So, last question. When you reach the end of your life, what will have made it most meaningful and what do you want your legacy to be?
When I reach the end of my life, which is gonna be like 120 or something, I would say if I feel good about me would be the most important part. If I feel that I have done good by me, and because of that, done good by the world, the people that I came across, all of that. And then as far as a legacy, I would love people to know me as a promoter of kindness and a safe space, and also a person that encouraged them to find themselves so that they could also go to the end of their life and feel really great about them.
Beautiful. So good. Man, thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you.
your wisdom. This is so good.
Oh, I appreciate it. And I'm glad to find out that we're in a similar space as well. And
Yeah.
I did read a little bit about your podcast and listen to one of them, and it was phenomenal. And I am so blessed to be here. So thank you.
Thank you.
How I Made It Through is produced and distributed by EIQ Media, LLC. Elevate your emotional IQ with podcasts and content focused on overcoming adversity, leadership, mental health, entrepreneurship, spiritually transformative experiences, and more.